This was it.
It's noon, Jay.
It's noon?
Yep.
Please, let's call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Malumbi.
Here.
Jerza.
Here.
Osterloop.
Here.
Genslinger.
Here.
Sonny.
Here.
Henny. Filcher.
Here.
Larson.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Are there any declaration of conflicts of interest that will show up on the proposed agenda?
Item 7 for me.
Okay.
I'm going to abstain from item number 9.
All right. Two declarations of conflict of interest. Let's go on to the agenda. We've all had a chance to take a look at it based on the package being delivered to you. Any additions or corrections?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded that the agenda be approved as presented. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, I assume you're ready to vote. We have to go roll call because we have a telephone number today.
Jerza.
Yes.
Osterloop.
Yes.
Genslinger.
Yes.
Sonny.
Yes.
Malumbi.
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
Motion carried.
The minutes of the previous meeting of the 28th of February were presented in the packet. Is there any additions or corrections to those minutes? Hearing none, I assume we're ready for a motion.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded that the minutes be approved as presented. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, I assume you're ready to vote. Mark, go for it, please.
Osterloop.
Yes.
Genslinger.
Yes.
Sonny.
Yes.
Malumbi.
Yes.
Jerza.
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
Motion carried.
The next meeting should be the 28th of March. Do I hear a motion for the blanket for that date?
Set the date. Second.
Moved and seconded that we set the date for the 28th of March. Discussion. Hearing none, I assume you're ready to vote. Go ahead, Mark.
Genslinger.
Yes.
Sonny.
Yes.
Malumbi.
Yes.
Jerza.
Yes.
Osterloop.
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
Motion carried.
The first item on the agenda is a plat of lots 1 through 15 and 20 through 28, 22 through 28, of Airport Edition, a subdivision of previously platted lots 2 and 3 of Fiala's Edition in the east half of the northwest quarter of Section 4, D103 North, Range 60 west of the 5th Principal Meridian, City of Mitchell, Davidson County, South Dakota, as requested by PSG Properties, LLC. Anything in particular, Mark, you want to talk to us about on this proposed plat?
So the original master plan was approved a long time ago for this area. So they are following that right now. They're platting out all those at one time. We're still going to require a master plan to be approved by the board at a future date, which will include the new drainage plan. We'll have, I believe they're going to do a PUD up there, and we'll have a developer's agreement with them as well. It's groundwood construction is who PSG Properties is. Joe, anything you'd like to add to that?
You got it. Okay, this has been master planned out quite a while ago, and obviously they're going to do something different out there. Discussion on the project before us. Hearing none, we're ready for a motion.
Move to approve. Second.
This is yours, I'll second it.
Okay, we had somebody beat you.
No, that's yours to have.
Oh, let you have it, okay. Larry seconded the motion. Is there discussion on that motion? Hearing none. Mark, let's go for a roll call vote.
Sonny.
Abstain.
Sorry. Malumbi. Gurza,
Yes.
Osterloo,
Yes.
Genslinger,
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, number 8. A plat, tract 1 in the west, oh, I love these, 626.87 feet of lot 5 of Trains Edition in the southeast quarter of section 34, T 103 north, range 60 west of the 5th parallel meridian, Davidson County, South Dakota, as requested by Ronald and Michelle Riggs. What's this one all about, Mark?
Riggs purchased the west 684 feet, 626 feet a while ago. They got a building permit to put a house in the corner, and now they're platting out the houses, the way I take it. It is your jurisdiction, but it's within 3 miles, so the county will also hear it. They won't hear it till the beginning of April, though. I see no issues with the plat at all.
Anybody see any issues with it? I think a motion would be in order then to approve it subject to county approval as well.
I'll make that motion. Second.
Moved and seconded that we approve the plat subject to county approval as well. Discussion. Hearing none, we are ready to vote. Mark?
Malumbi,
Yes.
Gurza,
Yes.
Osterloo,
Yes.
Genslinger,
Yes.
Sonny,
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Next item, a variance. Terry and Darlene Beeler at 600 Green Ridge Lane have applied for a variance permit for an attached garage and accessory building, combination of 2,160 square feet versus 2,000 square feet, and maximum height for accessory building of 30 feet versus 22 feet, located at 600 Greenwood Ridge Lane, legally described as Lot 3, Block 2, Green Ridge Edition, City of Mitchell, Davidson County, South Dakota. The said real property is zoned R1, Single Family Residential District. Mark, talk to us.
Notices were sent out to the neighbors, published in the official paper. We didn't have any responses in favor. We had 2 letters opposed, and I did receive 1 verbal from House. They are sending in their letter, but they are out of town, so their caretaker is sending it. I'll probably get it today or tomorrow. I did put, I think there was 1 letter that was in opposition that's in front of you instead of in the packet itself, and I emailed that out to Larry on Friday as well. Applicants came in to talk about a building permit for this area. The plans that they've submitted don't really show quite the location. It's kind of an odd location on the plans they show, but if you look at the GIS portion, what I was told is they have a sump pit right here behind these couple trees, and so then the garage is going to go kind of to the west, or excuse me, to the east of that, so it'd be going right in this location right here.
Anybody here?
And it's an attached garage that they already have, plus the 36 by 36, so the combination puts them over the 2,000, and then the height is because of the steep roof that's on that.
Applicant or anybody here to talk to us about it?
I'm here in opposition of it, but I sent my letter in.
All right. Why don't you talk to us?
You need me to come up to the microphone?
Yes, please, and introduce yourself.
My name's Ryan Huber. I live at 600 Fair Oaks Avenue, just to the south of where this proposed structure is going to go. I really don't have a problem with the building per se, just mainly the height of it. It's a pretty wooded area in between us and Bueller's, but it is going to sneak out of the trees quite a ways. And the other thing that I guess and it's not maybe so much for this particular committee to consider, but it's something to consider that when this development was established back in the day, there are 8 lots that are in a covenants there. And I went to the Register of Deeds and got a copy of the covenants, and it says that you can't have an outbuilding that has living quarters in it. And based on what I see online here, what Mark and I kind of talked a little bit about is that I don't know what's inside of it, but it looks really, really nice with the balcony coming off the back of it. I can only assume that there's going to be some living quarters in there, and that concerns me. It will be looking down on my backyard and a few of the neighbors' backyards.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else? Well, I guess it's up to us to talk about it, folks. What's your perusal here?
I've got several phone calls on this, and I have yet to have one that's in favor.
Are you muted?
Sorry?
Are you muted?
No.
Okay.
I'm not sure they need a tin roof out in that neighborhood. And the height is excessive.
Any other discussion or comment?
So does the 30, this is Jerza. Just a general question, maybe someone can answer for me. So the total 30-foot height, is that the height, total height including that lower level where I see there's a garage door on the bottom level that looks like it kind of is, I guess, below grade?
Nope.
Or is that 30 feet above the existing grade? Because looking at compared to the house elevation, it looks mighty tall. I mean, 30 feet is mighty tall.
It is 30 foot from the existing grade to the peak of the roof. We didn't include the wraparound garage below because that's below grade.
Okay.
And for the residential portion of it, R2, or this zoning only allows single-family dwelling unit on it. So if there is any dwelling that goes into that portion, building permit would have to be issued for that, and we wouldn't be able to issue that building permit. Now, if someone started habitating that and we didn't know about it, until someone tells us, we don't know a way to stop that.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, plus also in that R1, it says an accessory building shall not be permitted in any required front yard. Is that kind of considered the front yard by that cul-de-sac?
So we had discussions about whether that was really the front yard or not. And with the way that lot lays out, we decided it wasn't the front yard just because the lot's so big and their house is off to the other side of it. The cul-de-sac makes it kind of difficult for something like that with a wide portion like that, because where does the side yard then start if they're not built on that at all? And if they're building behind the front of their existing house.
So if that was a separate lot, just say for instance, that would be considered the front.
If it was a separate lot, then yes, it probably would be.
And if he made that a separate lot, then he wouldn't have to do any of this stuff.
Just the height.
No, because you can build a 30.
Oh, that's true, yep.
You can see there's a house to the left that has kind of the same situation with a house and a garage in that area.
So that would have been considered the side yard then? And the,
Yeah, it'd have to be almost considered a side yard. The way that's laid is different.
well, it's just kind of the cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
If you do the arch around there, it would be.
Okay, folks, what's your pleasure?
But it's noted that you said that it only could be a single-family dwelling, and if you go for a second,
Correct.
if it's going to have some living quarters, then the building permit cannot be permitted.
Correct. And a dwelling is sleeping, kitchen, bathroom is what constitute a dwelling unit or something like that.
And we have no idea if that's gonna happen or not.
Plans that were submitted did not have any of that up there. It just had the floor elevation that would be a workspace, or there's habitable room up there is all that I chose. Sewer and water, I did not see anything on plans for that.
If there's no sewer water, it's really not happening.
I'm sure that they're probably gonna pull water there, because if it's a garage, you're gonna want water for washing vehicles, or, I mean, hose bib on the outside for plants or anything like that.
We need to table this until we get more information from the property owner.
That sounds like that might be a good idea.
Yeah, I agree with that.
One of you guys want to make that as a motion?
I'll make that one.
Larry, you going to second it?
I'll second it, yeah.
All right, there's been a motion made and seconded that we table this until we get more information from the property owner on exactly what's going into this piece of property, into this proposed construction. Am I stating your motion correctly? Correct. Is there further discussion on this motion? Hearing none. Mark, your turn.
Jurza,
Yes.
Osterloop,
Yes.
Genslinger,
Abstain.
Sonny,
Yes.
Malumbi,
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
Motion carried to table.
All right, next item on the agenda. Okay, to the page, a variance. DLJ LLC at 501 East Juniper has applied for a variance of approximately 867 feet versus 1,000 feet as required to be from another medical cannabis dispensary located at 501 East Juniper. Required to be, avenue legally described as lot S3A, except the east 63 feet in the replat of lot S in the northwest quarter of section 27, township 103 north, range 60 west of the 5th parallel meridian, city of Mitchell, South Dakota. The said real property is zoned highway business district. Anybody here want to talk to us about that issue?
You saw this one before at a shorter variance. Since then, the ordinance has been amended to be the to include right-of-ways, including the measurements for that. So now it's 867. You did receive a letter in front of you that didn't make the packet. Larry received that on Friday from the neighbor, the lawyer representing the neighbors to the west of there. So you have talked about this one in the past, but I believe there's still people that would like to discuss it.
Anybody else want to talk to us about this issue? Please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Nicholas Coomer. I am a partial owner of the property adjacent to this applicant. I'm a practicing architectural designer, and I'm here today to ask you to deny the variance application for the applicant. The applicant is going to say that they should be allowed a variance of 133 feet because they want you to measure from door to door instead of property line to property line. They will likely say that the business is not on the same side of the street. I drove between these two properties many times when the building was occupied by Campbell Supply. I can tell you that travel time is barely 30 seconds. To be honest, the distance between the property is a decision whether or not to turn left or right off of Burr Street. It may not be the same as having several cannabis dispensaries in one strip mall, which was never mentioned in the intent of the regulation. But 1,000 foot is still having a dispensary close and will still have a higher concentration within one area of town. This would allow for 4 of your 5 cannabis dispensary permits to be within a concentrated part of town. The 3 that are already approved within the 3/4 of a mile of each other. You don't need to allow a 4th. The town is approximately 7.5 miles in length, north to south. The other 2 remaining permits should be in another part of town, not on the south side of town where there are 3 already approved. Measuring door to door does not make sense and is not practical and would require more oversight by city staff, which may not be feasible. Property lines are consistent and do not easily change. They can change with a lengthy public process, but this is not common. They are objective and not subjective. Building permits are very common, so are renovations to interiors, building layouts, and future buildings/expansions on properties, which often change the location of outside doors. If you all choose to measure from door to door instead of the property line, then there is a chance that the outside door location may change from one of the doors that our cannabis establishments are being measured against. Measuring door to door is not practical. It is also more subjective in nature than measuring from the property lines, since locations of outside doors and of the buildings can easily change. Section 1015.1 establishes the intent of Chapter 15 cannabis establishments. Per the section, the intent is to minimum the negative effects of cannabis establishments have on adjacent land uses, which acknowledges that there are negative effects on nearby landowners and businesses to wherever these cannabis establishments are located. Secondly, the section goes on to say that the intent is for the purpose of preventing a concentration of certain cannabis establishments in any one area. In other words, the higher the concentration in one area, the more negative impacts on the nearby landowners and businesses. My ask for you today is that you keep the established intent of these regulations in mind, continual disregard of the regulation in favor of allowing a higher concentration of cannabis establishments in one area of town and closer together only erodes away the well-intended intent of the regulations. Those nearby landowners and businesses are your citizens that you are trying to protect, not the cannabis establishment owners. Continue to put the interests of these citizens first. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Your comments? Anyone else?
Good afternoon. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Doug Daly. I'm here representing the interests of the Lori K. Coomer Family Trust, as well as Phil Lee, who is the owner of TK Electric here in Mitchell. We've been through this process before, so I know I kind of had some of the same comments, and I have submitted a letter, but for the record, I wanted to reiterate the fact that we're asking your consideration to deny the variance request and to uphold the intent of the zoning ordinances that we believe were essentially reaffirmed by the council when they approved the change in the zoning ordinance. Not only did the council reaffirm the intent, which was to prevent a concentration of cannabis establishments in one area, but they also affirmed the fact that, you know, if they wanted to include this one, they knew this was on the books, they could have reduced the variance or the actual distance from the other cannabis location, but they didn't. So we believe they affirmed the fact that it was the intent not to have more than one medical cannabis facility within 1,000 feet, regardless of the fact that this made the distance a little bit longer from the one that's been approved at the old Runnings building to Mr. Lifesay's current facility. It's still within the 1,000 feet. So we're asking you to follow the intent of the ordinance and to deny that, because there are already two within a very short period of time, or very short distance. You could argue that the three that have been approved are all on the same corridor. Basically, with regard to that particular exit of town. Finally, we don't believe that there has been any showing of hardship. The purpose of these zoning regulations are to promote the welfare of the public and to protect the public, not necessarily to protect the person who has the property. In this particular situation, Mr. Lifesay has many other options. And in fact, given the intent of the ordinance not wanting to have too many of them in close proximity to the other, there are many other locations that could have or house a medical cannabis dispensary in town. We think that by following the intent of the ordinance, the best thing to do would be for him to find another location. There are still licenses available. I don't believe that there's been any showing of a hardship. So we are asking your consideration to deny his application for a variance. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, folks, it's up to us. What are we going to do?
Well, I do like the new ordinance of property to property, because right now, we're looking at existing buildings on the lot. In the future, there could be empty lots, so where's the front door? There is none at that point. The sketches we get are pretty vague. So I do like that new ordinance from property to property, 1,000 feet. And to me, I'm going to stick with 1,000 feet. And basically, it was just a recommendation to the city council, but I'm going to vote no. I'm going to keep it as 1,000 feet. Keep it the ordinance for the future. So, I mean, if it's if they think variance is warranted, then city council approve it. But to me, I'm going to vote no on it. And I guess I won't make a motion, but I'll second it.
Was it 2 months ago we looked at this, and I was stating that I was looking at it as the spirit of the ordinance rather than the wording of the ordinance. We were looking at a 400 and some foot variance, but I was looking at the 867, and I still said no. Today I'm still saying no. That's what I'm at.
Got a motion?
I'll make that a motion.
Then I'll second it.
It's moved and seconded that we deny that variance request. Is there further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, I assume we're ready to vote. Mark, go for it.
Jerza,
Yes.
Osterloo,
Yes.
Genslinger,
Yes.
Sonny,
Yes.
Malumbi,
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
Motion denied, carried.
Okay, let's go on to number 11. Conditional use permit for Genesis Farms LLC at 106 West 5th Avenue. Genesis Farms LLC has applied for conditional use permit to operate a medical cannabis dispensary located at 106 West 5th Avenue, legally described as lots 11, 12, and block 12, Raleigh, First Edition, City of Mitchell. The said real property is zoned Central Business District. Anybody here? Well, Mark, tell us about what's going on, please.
Published in the paper, you did have a new one that you have in front of you that was for against it. There were two that I believe were in favor of it. Those made the packet. You heard this before a couple months ago, so bringing that back because we tabled everything and we just started fresh with the new application. Applicant is here. If you want to have any questions for him at all.
Would the applicant like to talk to us?
Good afternoon. Emmett Reistroffer with Genesis Farms. Not going to try to repeat. I think last time I told you a little bit about who my business is and the experience and that sort of thing. Want to focus just on the ordinance and the zoning ordinance as a whole and kind of how I think we fit into this spot. We need a variance, and I think for good reason we should be granted the variance. So to start with, on the new ordinance, 10-15-6 is the regulations relating to cannabis dispensaries. So that lays out, which zones are these businesses allowed in. And then in subsection B, says no dispensary shall operate within 300 feet of an educational institution, religious institution, child care center, preschool, nursery, mental health facility, etc. No cannabis dispensary shall operate within 1,000 feet of another cannabis dispensary. Distances shall be measured from the closest point of the property lines. Such buffer distance requirements may be waived via the variance process so long as the zoning district for the proposed location would be allowed if the applicable buffer distance were waived. So that does mention if the zoning district would be allowed. I believe that is the case because we are in the central business district is what we're talking about. We are 1.6 miles away from the nearest other proposed location. That was the last one on your agenda. So now that distance is even further away if that one's not going to move forward. So I believe we're probably closer to 2 miles from the closest dispensary. That's the biggest reason we chose the location, was to get away from the 3 or 4 other applicants up by the interstate exit, where I think that is a bit saturated, especially when a majority of the residents live north of that area. We wanted to move north. Downtown seemed accessible to everyone locally, not just folks driving through on the interstate. So we're in the central business district. Last time we were here, I know we've got approval for a CUP, just not the variance. So when you look at then the next section in the ordinance, it says additional variance and conditional use factors for cannabis establishments. There's 3 factors, and I looked at all 3, and I looked at your zoning code, and in my conclusion, so the first factor is that the proposed land use is consistent with the intent of this chapter and will not be contrary to public interest or injurious to nearby properties. So if you go to 10-15-1 intent, the section that sets the intent of the chapter, in order to minimize the negative effects of cannabis establishments on adjacent land uses and to promote the public health, safety, and general welfare of the city council adopts the following regulations, recognizing that it has a great interest in the present and future character of the city's residential and commercial neighborhoods. Adoption of these regulations is not intended to unreasonably restrict the opportunity of cannabis establishments to locate in the city, but is for the purpose of preventing a concentration of these establishments in any one area. So I understand that when weighing out these factors, you have a lot to balance out there. You know, the community's best interest is at heart here. I don't think it is the community's best interest to have all the licenses located up in the same area, all within, 1 to 2 miles of each other, pretty much. Unreasonably restrict the opportunity. I'm certainly doing my best to find another location. I may have found another one. That's not a done deal yet. Actually, when I leave here today, understanding that this variance could go either way at City Council as well. I'm still trying to work on a backup plan. We want to do business in Mitchell. If we can't get this spot, we're not going to give up. But I will tell you, is it unreasonable not to allow us here? Would that be unreasonably restricting us? That's not for me to decide. I'll just tell you it's been very tough. And the toughest part is there are a few other spots that are eligible, but the cost, where this one is almost turnkey ready. We'll knock down a few walls, install security systems, put on some signage. So I'm looking at $100,000 to $200,000 in immediate improvements to move in. Where, if we were to purchase the old Overtime, for example, which is also still pretty close, but I believe beyond the variance requirement, we would have to gut the whole thing, and we'd probably be looking at, 2 or 3 times a budget to overhaul that building. And that one is actually closer to houses. I think it's, less commercial in my mind. Maybe that's why that spot hasn't been a success in the past. It has its pros. I like having the parking lot. So I try to look at the pros and cons, but this spot to me is still the best spot. I would like to get the variance so we can move forward. There's 2 more points in the ordinance that I'll touch on. The second one was the 3 factors for considering the variance. The first one was the intent of the chapter, which I just explained. I think we meet that intent. We're trying to spread out. We're trying to be in a commercial area. Number 2 is the land use will not cause or contribute to the formation or expansion of a blighted area. We believe the dispensary will not cause or contribute to blight. In fact, our goal is to work with the landlord, neighbors, the downtown business community to invest in property improvements in the future, such as updating the sidewalk in front of the dispensary to be more ADA friendly. And we would like to support the landlord's vision for some type of seating and patio area with flowers and vegetation on the corner. I know the landlord's not here today, but she needs tenants, and we need revenue to really make that a desirable place to do business. I think once we're doing business, in 1 to 2 years, we can really look at making that corner look a lot nicer. Certainly that would help us, so we have that incentive to help with the costs to improve the appearance of the corner. And then also, security is our biggest strength, I believe, because we'll have 24/7 surveillance inside the dispensary, immediately out in the front, and the side of the dispensary along the alleyway. Currently, I don't think anybody has cameras anywhere in that building or on that corner from what I can see, so we would increase some eyes and ears and just general activity that I think reduces crime. Also, because we have so much on the line for our license, for example, my customers, the first-time customers, we go through a checklist with them, and they actually sign an agreement form of understanding the rules that come with being a medical cannabis card holder. So the first thing is how to drive with it safely, keeping it secure, putting it in the trunk, not driving under the influence, not doing it in public, keeping it in a locked cabinet at home away from kids, not consuming it at our location. If someone were to consume on the sidewalk, for example, out front, I have no choice but to ban them from ever coming back. So I educate them to follow the rules, and then I enforce the rules. Because if I don't kick them off and enforce that rule, and you had to do it, or the state had to do it, then my butt's in trouble. So I'm trying to prevent, losing my license by maintaining those rules. So I think we'll decrease crime and loitering. The third one is that the applicable ordinances and regulations will be observed. So on that note, I'll just say, so far my business has a 100% track record. The process at the state, you apply, they review your applications, then they send you a letter back that says you have a few things that are deficient and we need more information. Or they send you a letter that says there are no deficiencies in your application, which means then we're getting the license a few days later. I have had 0 deficiencies in any of my applications. So far, we hold more licenses than any other entity in the state. And so we've tried really hard to be compliant, really good track record, even outside of cannabis. My partners with many years of experience having liquor licenses and gaming licenses in South Dakota have never had a penalty or deficiency in their history of doing business here. So now I'll wrap up. I know I'm talking for a while, but on that central business district, I also looked at that part of the chapter. The intent of the central business district is to support a cohesive commercial center with a high priority on retail trade, personal service, institutional, governmental, and entertainment uses. So I believe there is a high priority for retail. We fall under a form of specialized retail. It goes on to say integrating new uses with the existing businesses is encouraged. So I find that kind of welcomes us to that central business district. Then it lists a very long list of the types of uses. I won't list them all. I just wanted to point out that there are permitted uses such as alcohol sales, on and off sale, brew pub, grocery store, convenience store, alongside religious institutions, child care, that sort of thing. There's personal health services. So I just feel like with that such wide variety of uses that the zoning code currently says is encouraged in that district, that I can't think of another place where I feel like we fit in. And then for conditional uses in that central business district, you have things like car washes and auto shops. We are really a retail, so I know we need the CUP. We got the CUP last time. Now we just need a variance. I wanted to mention Sioux Falls. I understand this is Mitchell, of course. I'm not saying Sioux Falls is always the best example of things. I'm certainly a critic there, too, of certain things. But they came through this discussion during the medical marijuana debate, and we now have a lot of churches in our shopping malls. That's kind of a new trend of churches. In my childhood, I thought of 57th Street, where I went to my church, was in a neighborhood. But now I see churches in the mall. There's even one that meets in Shenanigans Pub in Sioux Falls. So the city recognized that churches are going to more areas, which I think is a good thing. If the churches want to go to commercial areas, that's good for the community, for the church. More people see it and can go to church, hopefully. But the city decided, they amended just last month, to remove places of worship from their sensitive land use protections if they're in a commercial district. So a church in a neighborhood in Sioux Falls still has the same protections. I think there it was 500 feet or something like that, but now they've removed it altogether in commercial areas. So just pointing that out because, Sioux Falls had this discussion, that's the decision they made. I understand maybe if we're going to change the ordinance, that's a city council discussion, but in summary, I think I kind of hit everything. So in summary, we talked to more than 20 different people in the downtown area. We did receive a lot of support and non-opposition. I know not everybody's on board. There's probably a few folks here today that are opposed to it. Certainly respect their point of view, and I hope that if I'm able to move forward in another year from now, I can gain their trust and we can look back and say, we didn't cause any problems, we actually caused improvements. That's really my commitment to you, to the public. And like I said, we won't give up if we don't get this. I still want to do business here, but we take the responsibility very seriously. And I hope you'll just think about those 3 criteria points I touched on, as well as the intent of the Central Business District. And happy to answer any questions.
Anybody got a question?
I actually have a question for Justin. We're on the line item for conditional use permit, which we've already voted on. Do we need to do that again?
We've been treating this process as kind of a fresh start. Obviously comments and everything have been made in the past, and I think for this item in particular, really not a lot has changed since the last time it was in front of the board. But I'd just say that you treat it as a fresh application, and I don't know whether your vote's going to change or not, but I'd recommend that you still take a vote.
Any other comments from the audience?
Brenda Weiser. I have a business right next door. We have residential property along with business property, and you have a church right close by. You have 2 other churches that are within the, a short distance also. One that has a preschool that runs Monday through Friday from 6 a.m. till 6 at night. I already have an issue with people parking in front of my business, and so with this kind of a business, I'm going to have more people parking in front. I have a family-oriented business, and I'd like to keep it that way. And I just ask that you keep your ordinance in place along with the guidelines and not change it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Seeing no one else to come before us, it's up to us, guys. Do I hear more?
Are we doing the conditional use right now? Right. Yep.
We are.
Can I ask, what was the last vote for that? Forget it, Mark.
I believe 2 were against it.
Okay. Well, I do like the intent of them coming into Mitchell and all that kind of stuff, but like I said before, I think that's the wrong location. But I'll make the motion for the conditional use, to approve it.
We have a motion to approve the conditional use. Do I hear a second?
I voted in favor last time. I'll second that. I don't think anything's changed as far as that goes.
Okay? Further discussion on the motion? The motion is to approve the conditional use permit. Hearing no further discussion, Mark, it's up to you to do a roll call.
Osterloo.
Yes.
Genslinger.
Yes.
Sonny.
Yes.
Malumbi.
Yes.
Jerza.
Yes.
Larson.
Nope.
Motion carried for the CUP.
All right, Variance, Genesis Farms LLC, 106 West 5th Avenue, is applied for a variance of 101 feet versus 300 feet as required from a religious institution. It's located at 106 West 5th Avenue, legally described as lots 1112, block 12, Raleigh's first edition, city of Metro, South Dakota. The said real property is zone central business district.
Published in the paper, notices were sent out to the neighbors again. There were 2 new responses in favor and 1 new response against. You've received extra letters that didn't make the packet. What changed from last time is it was not including right-of-ways before, so it was 0, now it's 101, but because it includes right-of-ways.
Anybody from the audience want to talk to us about this issue?
Good afternoon. My name is Nathan Weber, and I did come and speak last time that this came before this Planning and Zoning Committee, and I also wanted to speak again today and ask that you deny this variance request. We've talked a lot about the fact that obviously the City Council went through the process of revising the ordinance to take out the rights-of-way. As Mr. Daly expressed in a prior agenda item here, the City Council would have had the opportunity to modify things at that time if their intent was different than to create these buffer zones, but they did not. As you can see on the map on the screen here, we've got Word of Life Church that's kitty corner across the street. You also have another church that's outlined, I believe that's Iglesia Cristiana, that's within 300 feet as well. The Word of Life Church hosts that place for teens, which is a place where teens from 7th to 12th grade gather and have opportunities to get together and really stay out of trouble, quite frankly. Also, right next door to this proposed location is a Big Friend, Little Friend that serves some of the most vulnerable members of our community, these youth that are at risk. And I truly feel that the City Council put this ordinance in place for a good reason. This particular location does not meet the required offsets. I do not have any issue with Mr. Reistroffer or his ability to do business here, but I believe that this is the wrong location to house a dispensary. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing none, we're ready for motion, folks.
Well, you kind of know where I stand. I like how the beats, and I'll vote no, but I won't motion it, but I'll second it.
Well, I will take my chairman's hat off for a second, and I will move that we deny this variance.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second to deny the variance. Is there discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Mark, it's your turn.
Genslinger,
Yes.
Sonny,
Yes.
Lumby,
Yes.
Jerza,
Yes.
Osterlund,
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
Motion carried to deny.
On the sidebar, Doug, could you stick around a minute? I want to talk to you about a mutual friend we have. Yeah,
Yes, I can.
thank you. Is there any other business to come before this body at this time? Hearing none, we are ready for public input. If you need to address the City Planning Commission on an item that was not on the agenda, excluding personnel, please come forward to the podium, state your name and your concern. Presentations are limited to 3 minutes. Items will be considered, but no action will be taken at this time. Seeing how no one is coming forward to the podium, we are adjourned.